Welcome to This Week in Crowder College, an in-depth look into how Crowder College students, faculty, and staff are working together so students soar to new heights, communities are impacted, and lives are changed. This Week in Crowder College is sponsored by the law offices of Wood and Peterson in Neosho, specializing in workers' compensation, personal injury, Social Security disability, and more. Learn more online at neoshoattorney.com. Now here's this week's edition of This Week in Crowder College.
And we welcome you to This Week in Crowder College. I am Ben Wolcott. Today we're joined by the head baseball coach, Travis Lallemand. And Travis, I know you've been doing this job for a very long time. You're on the brink of a brand new season. What gets you excited each year to get back out there and do what you do every year?
Well, obviously, just with recruiting and the things that we've had, and just seeing these guys develop through the fall, and just how much better they get as they go. That's kind of the motivating force is the development of these guys, and watching what they start out as to what they become. That's kind of an exciting part, and no exception for this group either. Same thing. A lot of guys developed and got stronger as we went through the fall, and you see the baseball skills develop along with it.
You guys finished 39-22 last year. You lost in the Region 16 tournament. It's only been a couple years since you've been to the College World Series, which obviously that is the goal every year. But, since JUCO baseball, you only get 2 years with those guys. Probably none of those guys that you have on the roster have been to that College World Series. What do you have to do this year to try and get back to Colorado?
Well, I think it's going to hinge on our starting pitching, which a lot of years do, but that's probably where we've got to go. I feel like our bullpen is strong, but I think that's the name of the game now with the showcase mentality of baseball. These guys throw 2 innings, 3 innings, 6-9 outs in their outings, and that's what they're used to. Nobody's really good or equipped at going deep in a game. So I think that's going to be the X factor for us. But really like this club offensively. I think there's some depth there, but probably where we're, and this is the bland, part of baseball, but I think where we're exceptional is on the defensive side. We really defend well, and those are going to be our strengths. But I think the X factor is just the starting pitching, and it's not here only. I think it's everywhere across baseball, in a lot of levels, just because of the nature of amateur baseball at this point.
And you talked about just seeing the improvement of your guys from the fall to the springtime. What are you hoping for as you get rolling here in the early going? Obviously, January, February, it's going to be cold playing baseball. So what are you hoping for as you get things rolling here in the next few weeks?
Well, obviously our schedule in February is, one of the toughest in the country, especially for our area. We're playing, ranked teams throughout the whole month. And it's just, I want these guys to be challenged, because I think once we get to March and we start into conference, it just really sets a precedent. So, you can't, our February schedule is hard to, if you put everything on wins and losses here in February, it's, you might be, upside down with it real quick, but we don't schedule for the wins. Now we want to win the games, but we want to get better. And I always say there's wins and losses at times, and sometimes there's losses and wins. You play awful and end up somehow winning a game. That doesn't necessarily do it. We're wanting to set a precedent for what it's going to be to get back to success in May. And I know we had a really good run there, and then last year going 0-2 in the region tournament was a huge disappointment, because we felt like we had prepared and got better throughout the season and just kind of fizzled at the end. So we got to make sure we stay away from that.
You mentioned Region 16 play in the postseason, but just talk about Region 16 play during the regular season. It helps you get ready for that postseason play as well.
Yeah, last year, we were the 2 seed, and Mineral Area went in as a 1, and they had 3 losses in conference, and all 3 were to us, So, we were at a high competitive rate. We really didn't. We played our worst baseball in the tournament, and 4-0 and 5-3. It's not like we got stomped, but at the same time, it was not as competitive as what we're used to being, and that's the goal for this group, is to get us back to the level that we expect to play at in May, and that's a big part of this program for a lot of years. And like I said, 1 year's too many to have a year like that where it's a non-competitive thing. We've competed in the Region 16 championship. We had won it, 5 years in a row, and really pretty much every year besides 3, we've played in the championship game. So, it's something that we expect here, and the players are prepared for.
You're known for just the recruiting and being able to get those guys ready to get to D1 baseball, SEC baseball, minor league baseball. You also have probably your 2 main known alumni, Jacob Mizorowski and Aaron Ashby, playing for the Brewers. So what do you do year in and year out to get those guys ready to be able to get to that next level?
Well, I think a lot of it is just the structure here, and how our practices, how our workouts and all those things are structured, I think, helps create a development environment for them, but also, prepares them for the next level, which, I think just with the time, this is definitely not a recreation-ran program. They spend a lot of time at this, and there's a lot of obligations and responsibilities they have to, boxes to check, so to speak, throughout the week. And I think that, helps prepare them because obviously, we kind of, treat it almost like, pro ball in a way, obviously, with our preparations and things like that. And, like when Miz was here, he threw 71 innings. A lot of places he might throw close to 100, but, we took care of the arm and used him, limited his pitch count, things like that. So kind of that mentality there. So I think that, from a work ethic standpoint, and then also transitioning it to the field, I think my coaching staff and I guess myself as well, I think we do a pretty good job of teaching the game of what it's going to take to compete at the next level.
Well, Coach, I know you're a busy man, and I know it's hard to believe with the snowstorm outside, that just went through, that baseball's right around the corner, but we wish you guys the best of luck all year long.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm sitting here standing here looking at about 8 inches of snow. So we'll see when we can open up. But I'm excited about it. I like this group, and we'll see if we can prove that on the field.
All right, Coach, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for listening to This Week in Crowder College. This Week in Crowder College is sponsored by the law offices of Wood and Peterson in Neosho. You can listen to this broadcast again by going online to kneo.org or to crowder.edu. Tune in once again next week for another edition of This Week in Crowder College on KNEO 91.7 FM.